Get live. So we're live on YouTube, Twitch, and LinkedIn in a minute. LinkedIn looks like it's taking some time. We'll give it a few seconds just to all connect up properly, and then we'll get going. Sorry about being a few minutes late. We normally try and start this at 7:15. Cool. Let's go then. So, welcome back to the Project Flux podcast. This is the weekly pulse, which we try and do live as much as possible. We can't do live every week, unfortunately, because sometimes we're out and about in the evening for whatever reason. But we try our best to do this live. So, if you are about, feel free to drop a comment, and we'll try and answer any questions you've got. But yeah, it's great to be back after a few days away in Greece, and it's great to be back with 30-year-old Yoshi. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, mate. I mean, I had a good weekend. I was recovering from a few parties actually, so that was good. My throat is kind of not at its best, but we move.
I can hear it. So 1 year older, 1 year wiser.
You think so, wouldn't you? You think so?
Yeah, I think so. I hope so anyway. But yeah, it's been another really interesting week. We're going to try and cover what we can in about 20-25 minutes. So the new newsletter, really excited for that one to go out tomorrow for those listening live. And the title is DeepMind Warns on AGI, Safety Strategy and a Smarter Future. So it's all around the big story is around Google, DeepMind, putting this path towards AGI. So I think you've taken this story, Yoshi, so can you just tell us what's going on here? Because there's been a lot spoken about AGI over the last few months, and are we really getting there to this artificial general intelligence? The fact that this has come out from Google is a real sign that we must be approaching that level.
Yeah, so it's led by DeepMind's co-founder, and it is a 145-page paper. So I mean, it's good to read, but it's quite lengthy. And it basically pertains to an approach to technical AGI safety and security. It's a follow-up on a previous paper they did where they were classifying AGI. And in that paper, they were looking at breadth and depth. But in this paper, they were kind of exploring 4 different areas. And we've kind of covered this on Flux before. The first is misuse. So this is where the user is the rogue actor and they can instruct the AI to cause harm. And the defense here is focusing on guarding potentially harmful capabilities effectively.
Yeah.
So you do that with security protocols, access control, model mitigations like oversight, safety alignment, and early warning systems. So off the back of that already, you can kind of tell that this is a systemic approach to managing risk associated with AI. And a big problem is the fact that we don't know what risks might actually present themselves. As these things become a lot more intelligent, it's harder for us to actually monitor and supervise them because they might become more intelligent than us. And that was one of the points they picked up in the paper, to which the solution was actually using a hybrid of human and AI, good AI, to monitor and assess future AI models, because it
So
will
you
become
still got a
harder.
human. It still thinks you need a human within that mix.
Yeah, but for me, it was actually more surprising that it was using good AI to safeguard against bad
Well,
AI.
what do you mean by good AI then?
So you can have models which can help mediate other models, right? Because we won't be able to do it ourselves completely because it will be smarter than us, right? So there is that risk. The other is misalignment. So this is where an AI might see its goals as being different to its own creator, its developer,
This
and
is
it might.
the paperclip thought experiment, right? Where that kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's basically where it can deceive us. It can deceive us in its ability. Now, that is another risk because we are looking at techniques such as mechanistic interpretability, traceability, predictability. But if these AI models are sandbagging their abilities, we might not have the right risks in place because we aren't foreseeing those. So that's one other issue. But in this, the defense is 2 layered. So there's model layer mitigations, again, human oversight with the support of AI. And then failing that, there's system layer safeguard, so monitoring and control in and around access. There are other areas, and this is an interesting one, structural risks. And this is the harms from multi-agent dynamics, which no agent is at fault because you can't attribute to a single one, but it's basically down to the complexity.
So this is when we're looking at a agentic workflow, and then something falls between the gaps, and then agent one will say, "Well, I haven't made a mistake. Agent two made the mistake,"
Yeah,
but in a sense, it doesn't matter because that could be quite catastrophic, can't it? And the human will just blame the AI, as in the totality of the AI, not the fact that these different agents are meant to pursue different responsibilities, or have
exactly.
different responsibilities. Okay, I hadn't thought of that. That's really interesting.
Yeah, so the agentic risk is one that's just presented itself now, and some of the key takeaways, not just looking at these four areas, but some of the takeaways in terms of what we can do. One is preemptive strategies, right?
Mm,
So they basically talk about, they frame this thing around an evidence dilemma, right?
mhm,
And it's where the risks themselves have to be managed with a precautionary approach, because it has to have a precautionary approach despite the fact that we have no clear evidence of capabilities underlying those risks, right?
got it.
So
Yeah.
we have to be preemptive in that sense. And in that, we can use the idea of continuity as a way to manage risk. So the risks and the problems which might present themselves today should typically present themselves in the future, right? Because the scaling hypothesis uses a similar technique. We're just growing
Mm,
data, networks, training, and inference times. So there's that. And the other one is around R&D acceleration. So as we move into, or as we have moved into deep research and autonomous agents who are able to conduct, hefty research, like James, you're mentioning Manus is doing a lot of work, we will have these recursive feedback loops where we're getting AI to train other AI. Now, because of that, and because of the speed of how these things are being trained, our abilities to govern new innovation will be lagging because new things will present themselves at a much faster pace. So there's also the fact that we might lose track. So those are some of the key
yeah.
takeaways. But the main thing was to look around, like I said, the systemic perspective. All of these mitigations that we have, and even the problems which might present themselves, all exist within a system, right? So a systems thinking approach is one approach that is being used as a means to understand
Mm,
the risks we currently have and the risks that we might have, because effectively you're scaling all of these different things, but we're still using similar techniques that we have done, in the last year or so. So that's the paper.
yeah.
And one interesting point, actually.
How does it compare to? Because it was a few months ago that Anthropic did a similar paper. Is there a lot of crossover there, or they're taking a? Seems to me they're taking slightly different tact in really looking at the ethical, responsible AGI. Whereas
Yes.
the Anthropic one seems to be far more technical.
Yeah, there's a more, well, they talk a lot about mechanistic interpretability, right? So how
Yeah.
can you effectively unit test what the AI is doing? Break it down and understand what's happening and all the different avenues it can take for its outputs. What it can think before. And one of the findings was that a lot of the LLMs actually have a structured route of outputs before they
Mm,
even come to certain outputs. Right? It's all pre-planned. Now it's also different to OpenAI, because OpenAI had they had deliberative alignment, which is a kind of more autonomous uh, form of mitigating risk and aligning it to human values, right? So
mm.
constitutional AI and all these different elements, but all of them are similar in the
They're
sense that they're
similar, but they're
taking,
slightly different tacts,
well, yeah, yeah, and they
which
take
goes with their personality almost.
exactly.
Mm,
So this paper was in the newsletter that we would issuing tomorrow.
yeah.
But it is an interesting paper, and it does go through a lot of those different approaches and risks. Our food for thought um, was really around, like I mentioned, the sandbagging, right? That's the bit that I don't think we've really understood. Because if these things are pretending that they're not smarter than they actually are, we're kind of we're
Underestimating.
underestimating. We're
Yeah, yeah.
underestimating, right? And
And
that's
I think that is a real risk. I think that is exactly what's happening. I
yeah,
think a
because
lot of
right now
people.
we're saying that there's a, so again, continuity in two different things. Continuity in that the situations that present themselves today might present themselves in the future, so we can go off
Yeah.
that evidence. But also, there's been no sudden jump in intelligence. It's all been gradual. So because of that, we can iterate and understand risks as we go. Whereas if it was a sudden jump, there's a wider canvas for us to have to assess and understand where the problems are.
Yeah, but even though it's been very, like you say, it's been gradual improvements, the impact of those gradual improvements is
Mm.
massive. So take for we talked about Manus, for instance, that whilst it's based on a similar technology, in terms of the large language models that are powering it, it's a step change in the capabilities.
Yes, because effectively you're compounding the abilities of other
Yeah.
large language models, right?
Yeah, and it really is for those who haven't used it yet. We'll come to that in a minute. Let's talk about the other story then. Just moving on to the tech news, which was this literally came out as we went to press in
Hmm.
terms of the newsletter. So we probably haven't had a chance to do it full justice, but eagerly awaited Meta's latest model, which they call Llama, has just come out, and Llama 4, I think it's called, and the immediate kind of impact or the immediate press around it has been pretty positive. But have you had a chance to have a sort of closer look at it?
Yeah. So when DeepSeek R1 came out earlier this year, there was panic, you know,
Yeah.
ensuing within the Meta's camp. And I remember there being, there was a cut-off, there was the restructuring. People were saying, there were insider leaks, whether or not they were true or not. But it
Well,
was
they
that,
were Meta were worried, weren't they? Because
yeah,
they seem to be able to do the amount of compute needed to effectively outperform the Meta was huge because they were using this, what was it called, mixture of experts
DeepSeek,
model.
DeepSeek were
Yeah,
using the
deep
mixture of
secret.
experts
Yeah,
approach, and this is so. This is why I kind of mentioned them. Is that Mark Zuckerberg then did his whole war room thing where he locked everyone in the room,
mm.
not physically, but that's what they were doing
Well, he
to try
might
and
done.
crack it. To try and crack it,
Who
right?
knows?
And then we ended up with these three different new models. So you have Scout, which is basically a smaller, faster model, but it has the world's largest uh, context length, right? So there's
Oh,
10 million.
does it beat the Google one, which became the
Yes.
world's largest one just a few weeks ago? That goes to show how fast it's going.
Yeah.
Literally,
So Google
was it?
was
It
2 million.
was last week's newsletter. We said they've just broken the record, and now they've done it again.
Yeah, so Google Gemini 2.5 Pro was 2 million. This is 10
Yeah,
million,
that's
right?
mad.
10 million. So for those in product delivery, you can absorb a lot of content. And to put it into context,
So,
it can work with the entire United States Constitution, plus all 50 state constitutions, plus the Federalist Papers, plus the Bill of Rights, plus all landmark US Supreme Court cases in a single input. And that will only take up 60% of the capacity. Now,
just for people's understanding, a token is roughly. I mean, it differs, but it's roughly a word, right?
token is basically a AI's working memory. So it's how much information an AI can work with or retain before it loses it.
Yeah,
And a token is typically three-quarters of a word or something like that,
yeah.
or
So
1 million.
yeah, for when you're trying to imagine, for people listening, it's imagine roughly 10 million words.
Exactly. Now the thing is that it's not it doesn't linearly scale with performance though, right? Because there are users which, and this is an inherent problem across the concept of context lens, is that um, performance drops, right?
Yeah.
So people were seeing here when they were using it, when processing got beyond 5 million input tokens, um, performance was dropping down considerably. And there are some models who were able to do it. So Google actually do well with their 2 million
What? Sorry,
context.
just sticking on that. Why did they give any indication why that was? Is it
No.
because there's more to process and therefore it's kind of getting stuck?
Well, there were the intricacies, right? You might have a lot of words that you have to work with, but there are
Mm,
complexities within that, understanding the structure, the semantics, and all these different elements. And you have to make sense of that. You have to make logical sense of that information. So it's still a lot to crawl through. Now,
yeah.
before we go on to the other models, the thing that I don't quite understand is when I read back how much information it can take, that is way more than what anyone's really going to be putting in. So
Mm.
why are they building a 10 million
Yeah.
um, input token? I don't know.
Well, I think it must be because obviously we're talking about words, but obviously there's tokens for audio, tokens for video, tokens um,
Mhm.
for visuals. But so because this model is multimodal,
Yes.
I guess it's getting ready for video input essentially. Because when you get to video input, I don't know how much, say, a 1 minute video is going to be a big portion of that 10 million token. So I think that's probably why. So that it's ready and prepared to take in any kind of media.
Yes, and this is the first open source natively multimodal
Yeah,
models that have come out. So, for instance, GPT-4 was initially trained, built on text, and image capabilities were brought in after. This has natively been trained. I think a technique called early fusion, where it's been trained on both jointly, both types of modes and modalities. But
yeah,
the other two, so Scout is a smaller, quicker model, is good with the big context window. Maverick is probably the default go-to model for conversational chatbots.
Yeah.
People have reported it being the best they've seen, better than GPT 4.5. Benchmark, it does perform better. But again, with benchmarks, take it with a pinch of salt because it was released by Meta and hasn't been tested on independent tests, even though the benchmarks are, somewhat pervasive. Um, and then Behemoth. Now, this is the interesting one. Behemoth is another record.
What a name for a model, right? They're obviously going big with this one.
Yeah,
To
well,
call it
this is Meta's moonshot, right? So
yeah.
it is another record-breaking model which has the potential to be 2 trillion parameters,
Mm.
but it is still in training and it hasn't been tested. So whether or not the 2 trillion will bring tangible benefits or practical gains, or will it just inflate costs because they're just scaling for the sake of scaling, might also be a problem and add to the AI bubble. So there's that. The good thing, though, with Meta's stuff is now they're repositioning or they're reinvigorating their position as a company who are democratizing AI, right? So that's the really good thing about it, unlike GPT, which is a closed system. So
Yeah.
that's also, and you can see, and I know you mentioned it with the mixtures of experts approach. Just to add context to that, that's basically that's compute efficient because it's where you effectively route an input to a specific expert. An expert might be, part of the AI.
Well, the way I got it explained to me, it's like the way we use our brain. We obviously don't use our brain as a neural
Yeah,
network for every single thing. You can actually see our brain fire up when we're doing certain things. For instance, when we're eating in terms of taste, or where we're like concentrating on
yeah,
something. And so it's exactly the same thing. It doesn't
same thing.
fire up the whole model, which obviously means it's using a lot less compute.
Yeah.
And this is what's interesting for me, because whilst everyone panics about DeepSeek, all it does is they feed off each other, these companies.
Mhm.
DeepSeek makes a breakthrough, and now Meta are instigating that
Yeah.
breakthrough and then building on it, and then OpenAI will do the same. So for the consumer, it's good because it's moving AI faster and faster, and dealing with the compute issue, because we can keep scaling, and then it's just going to cost us more money because the compute's going to go up. But if the mixture of experts approach really has kind of reset the benchmarks in terms of what you can do with a certain amount of compute.
Yes.
So it's really good. And the funny thing about the Llama one though it's difficult for people to use it, isn't it? Because it's built into some Meta products, but
Mhm.
I'm not sure. Is there at some point it was just US, and it's definitely not available in Europe. Can people use Meta AI as a standalone product? I'm not sure.
Standalone, there is a thing on the web. I'm not sure. I've not used it, but it said that you
Yeah,
can use web. I'm not sure if that's just US.
I'm
But
going to
another
check
thing
it
with these
out.
models is again, a lot of companies are dialing back, the bias around political bias, um, and companies are wanting their models to be able to answer most questions, or at least give an input. But people are reporting that with Meta's models, it does refuse to answer certain questions. So there is that issue with it. And as an open source model, you want it to be a lot more, well, I guess, open,
Yeah,
accessible.
no, it is available to because I've obviously been using it within like AI Foundry, or as a model built into something else that we built. But
Mm.
if you just go to meta.ai, you can use it, and you can just sign in with your Facebook or your Instagram. So
Yeah.
it's all available. So that's pretty cool. Um, right, okay, just trying to rattle through some of these. Was there anything else you want to say on that, mate?
No, just that they have an upcoming event, which is LlamaCon, and that is near the end of April. So you can sign up, and I think it's free. I
Yeah,
think.
well, we got the sign up. Let me just have a look. Actually, we got the sign up in the newsletter if you are interested. Actually, that does sound quite good. Do you know where they're holding it, or is it online?
I think it's online.
Okay, that'll be one for me to sign up to,
Mhm.
definitely. Having got a taste of some of these when we went to the Microsoft one a few weeks ago, which was pretty cool. So, as always, we've got loads of links. We'll love it. And there's actually a lot. If we look at the tech stuff, just to give people an idea of just how much is going on and what we're trying to keep up with, there's one, two, three, four, five, about 15 other stories that we're not even going to in detail, but do check them out. There's a bit about GPT-5 being nearly here, GPT 4.5 passing the Turing test,
One for
bits
Tinder.
about one about Tinder. Yeah, had to get that one in. um there's a lot happening, and this podcast, we try and just summarize the main stories, but do check the newsletter if you want to find out everything else.
Mhm.
So moving to projects, right? So one of our good friends, Greg Lawton, who's CEO of Nodes and Link, they've just announced a partnership with a major company, ACOM. Um, in terms of like a collaboration. So it's a development in terms of ACOM being able to utilize the nodes and link uh, software or their AI and bring it into their project control systems. So this is quite big, I think, because at the moment it's always felt a bit like consultants on one side, traditional consultants on one side, and then AI systems on the other. What this is saying, this is the two working together, so you're getting the best of both worlds, and which is feels right to me, because you still all, like we've said a lot about always needing a human in the loop, and actually the role of a project manager or the role of a QS becoming more and more the curator of a bunch of agents, and nodes and links effectively being one of those agents. But and then the role of the project manager QS on the other side then being all around the human side, how to communicate, how to have that emotional intelligence. So this is it, whilst it seems quite obvious, doesn't it, that there's a good place to go. And I'm wondering if this is going to be the start that we see of a lot of these collaborations, because obviously ACOM have got the name in terms of the project delivery,
Mhm.
and Nodes and Link have got the tech effectively and the algorithm that they've spent a long time building. So rather than each of them going after their own, either ACOM trying to build software effectively, or Nodes and Link trying to go corner the consultancy market, which I know they've done. They have launched themselves as a consultancy as well. But this feels a bit more natural. What was your initial reading of this?
Yeah, I think it's a logical take. Just a logical
Yeah,
take, right? I think this is the sort of partnerships I think that you'll see in the industry, because, like you mentioned, you're matching domain expertise with tech expertise, and that just marries together quite well. And I think it's a pattern that's happening industry wide. Sorry, not industry wide, across industries, right? It just makes sense for that marriage to happen. Just reading here that there's the embedding of a carbon tracking directly within
yeah,
project controls
yeah,
framework.
yeah,
So
yeah.
they're also stepping into different use cases. I mean, I was actually at an ACOM talk last week about sustainability. There wasn't no one from the digital or data team there, but there is a sense that they're shifting in this direction, and this is not a surprise.
Yeah, yeah, okay. And it's interesting in the press release they actually say AI handling the heavy lifting, which is something we're hearing more and more. This kind of positioning it as let AI take care of the grunt work, and so that your team can grow. Um, so it like I say, it does all make sense. But let me play a devil's advocate right with this, because it's still new and we're not sure how it's all going to play out. So you got the old guard, sort of the ACOM, and then you got the new guard, which is Nodes and Link. Is there something in the fact that Nodes and Link are utilizing the ACOM brand to basically for their own um, needs and their own requirements, and then let's say 3, 4, 5 years time, where that's not the Nodes and Link will say, well, you don't need the ACOM bit anymore. So
I
there is
mean,
that potential, isn't there?
yeah. So if you're ACOM, you have to position yourself so you have resilience, right? Whether that looks like, I don't know if that's elevating your strategic thinking, if it's building new collaborative partnerships, if it somewhat sits in the agreements that you have. But there is that risk, right?
Yeah,
Um,
because it's whilst it's good for both parties at the moment, if we carry on the way we're going in terms of the advancement of artificial intelligence, there will come a time, I guess, where that agreement might be more beneficial to one party than the other. In this case, the traditional party rather than the new party. In which case, I guess it's like anything, isn't it? There'll be a renegotiation of the contract to say,
well, exactly.
well, this isn't quite suiting me the way it was. But it'd be interesting to see how that pans out. And for me, also, what will be interesting is whether anyone follows suit on this. I mean, I don't, it doesn't say anywhere whether it's an exclusive agreement. So maybe Nodes and Link could partner with other traditional consultancies as well. There's obviously their competitors like Nplan, who we had on a few weeks ago, and maybe they'll be having similar strategic partnerships around the business. But my kind of gut feel is this is the thin end of a wedge, and we're going to see a lot more of this, at least in the short to medium term.
Yeah, and it also tells you that companies who aren't as tech savvy or haven't got this capability, as that's why they brought in nodes and links. They are trusting these more vertical based AI companies who focus on specific niches rather than waiting for frontier tech companies or frontier AI companies like of these incumbents like OpenAI, Google, Microsoft step in the space? Because we know they're also treading along that line, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
they're more
absolutely.
able to build more generalized tools. So, for instance, in the DeepMind paper, it mentioned that generalization is still fundamental for smart systems, right? For intelligent systems.
Mm-hmm.
So, whether generalized systems trump it in the long term, we don't know. But consultancies or companies alike are show more promise towards these vertical-based companies.
Yeah, and it touches on the whole concept of the micro company that we've spoken about quite a lot. Actually, what is the future of the institutions and the corporates in a world where we don't have to democratize that intelligence and um, wisdom and knowledge
Mm.
because it's effectively free. So yeah, a lot more to run there. So just conscious of time because we do have to sign off because actually we've got a really exciting podcast to record for one of the
Yeah.
spotlight series in a minute. So we are going to have to run from this quick run through the newsletter. But the last one I want to talk about is Manus. So we've talked about Manus quite a lot, which is kind of the operator. Yoshi, I was thinking about this. It is the operator. So there's OpenAI as operators, and then there's Manus. It's is that an agent?
Yes.
Type of agent, or is it another category all in itself? It's
So
type of agent.
Manus uses 3.7 Sonnet
Yeah.
powering
So
agentic workflows.
so it's a type of agent that then also utilizes your computer effectively,
Yes.
utilizes your browser.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've got access to Manus now, and I think it's out of the beta phase, and you can now pay for it. They got two tiers.
Oh, is it out? Is
There's
it out on beta?
Well, the subscription's out. I'm not sure if it's still beta, but I think they're starting to release it more and more readily to people. So if you do put yourself on the wait list, I think you can get yourself onto it pretty quickly.
But James,
And
question for you: is this the most impressive AI you've seen this year?
for me, yeah, this is chat GPT moment for me, um, of where my I'm struggling to kind of my brain is struggling to see where this could go because you look at just for people's if they haven't listened to the previous podcast or the first time they've heard about Manus, it's effectively an AI agent that can take control of your computer and go and perform tasks for you. So you do it, you prompt it the similar way that you prompt ChatGPT, but then what it can do is it can start logging into it could log into ChatGPT, it could log into Claude, it could log into Word, it could log into whatever you tell it to log into, and then do multiple tasks together. So a good example would be go and research such and such and create a report in this template that you've uploaded, and it will do all that for you. Another example that a lot of people use is, go and book a flight for me. So do research around the internet and
Mm.
then find a flight and then book it for me. And you can have human in the loop so it doesn't go and do things without your say so if you want. But what's so I've been using it, and the use cases, like I say, are almost endless. And then you start thinking to yourself, okay, well, I can just have because don't forget you don't have to just limit it to one thing. So you could set five things off. So it could be going doing five things whilst you're doing something else. That might be having dinner, but it might be you've got a video call. And you're then like a manager just checking what this thing is doing, checking the output, saying, no, that's not quite right, do that. And
Ah,
this is
yes.
a whole new skill. So if we talked about prompt engineering before, as the skill that came along
Mm.
with ChatGPT, this is going to be around kind of agent management or agent orchestration. I'm going to coin that word.
Well, what they call it, they call them. We call humans should be in the supervisor space, right? You become a
Yeah, human supervisors or agent supervisor,
Mm.
and you won't be doing that, but you'll be checking and you'll be checking in, every so often. How's these things going? Whilst you're doing more high value stuff, um, and then the pricing's come out. So there's a free version where you can get a few prompts. The £30 a month. There's a £30 a month, which would be most okay for most people, which gives you 3,900 credits. Now,
Mm.
don't ask me. I'm still trying to understand how many
Yeah.
credits gets you what you want. But the bigger one, I think it was $199, which is about 150 quid, I suppose.
But James, you mentioned here, have you used it on your phone?
I haven't used it on my phone yet. No,
I
no,
have used
no,
it on my phone,
no, I
and
haven't.
it is really good, and it's passive. It does it in the background.
It does it all in the background. So you can put, like, there's something on your mind. Let's say you're about to go to sleep. You could put it on and wake up the next morning. It's been working overnight for you. It's like
Yes.
the best and most intelligent intern doing,
Yeah.
whatever you want to do. I've heard people sort of managing their social media accounts with it and things like that. So,
Hmm.
but $199, right? That sounds like a lot, £150. But if you use it properly, so that's the next tier up, where I
Yeah.
think it's pretty much limitless. That sounds a lot of money. So whatever it is, 2 grand a year, that is a bargain. If this
Yeah.
keeps going the way it's going, because all of a sudden you can effectively be doing 5 jobs at once, 24/7. And I think where this is going to go is it's going to go up and up, and you'll probably be able to schedule stuff. So you'll be able to like go through all your tasks and have it doing doing stuff for you. And then if you've got a limit of 5, I would imagine they'll eventually do scheduling. So when task 4 is complete, the next one that you scheduled will come into play. So that
Oh,
whilst you're away or whilst you're sleeping, it's constantly doing stuff. Now, the other thing is, you rightly said that it's currently based on Sonnet 3.7,
yeah.
Claude 3.7 Sonnet, right? Um, so that's its limit at the moment. It's as intelligent as that particular agent. Now, as the models get better and better, they're going to keep flipping them out. So this is going to get better and better. So, like I keep saying, with all these AIs, it's the worst you'll ever use at the moment, and it's pretty damn impressive right now. So
Hmm.
now my thought path is going in a totally different place in terms of where I think AI is taking us, in terms of the micro company concepts, because there is now no limit. Like
Hmm.
the whole is making sense to me now, the micro company concepts, because the thing stopping people creating companies before was the risk involved in creating a company, right? Because you had to hire people, there was payroll, there was HR, there was all this stuff. um, with the fact that we're democratizing knowledge and intelligence, so you start wondering what the point of institutions are. And then you start saying, well, also, I've got these agents that I can spend $199 per month, and I've got now a team of people working for me with very, very little risk. So that's going to totally change the entire environment about the way that people are able to take much more risk and be a lot more entrepreneurial and try stuff. So what I think is going to happen as these agents start becoming more and more evasive and just all around, please God, like, this is what I'm hoping will happen, is we're going to see some serious new, you know, uh, new inventions, new things to boost the economy. And it'll be the economies that actually embrace this technology that will be the ones that benefit the most.
Yeah, and this is why a lot of, I think, middle management went, because I think the dynamic changes, because so you're working directly with some of these agents, right? And you're getting them to do tasks. Eventually, you could have an agent which actually evaluates the work that they're doing and have do your job you're doing now.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's very difficult to see an end to where this could go.
Where this can
I,
go, yeah.
I've done the whole scenario in my head about, right, like you say, then this, then this, and then this, and you think to yourself, unless someone actually physically stops, there's like some regulation that stops us doing it. I can't see an end to essentially getting to ASI, which is artificial superintelligence,
So
and
do you think this is the
and then
first
what?
time where you can actually see the potential of, like you said, small companies springing up from fully, well, mostly
I
agent
can't. So
to
if yeah, if you're a clever guy who's um, got an idea, a business idea, and but you're risk adverse, and you in traditional sense would have gone and worked for a big corporate company and got your experience and done all that, you, because either you didn't have the risk appetite, or you didn't have the money or the capital behind you. Well, you don't need that anymore. You could just do it, and in fact, you could even do it whilst you're doing something else.
well,
you know
that's power.
you
Yeah,
could
that's
you
power.
could do it whilst you're traveling. I mean, it opens up so many possibilities for people. Side hustles.
Hmm.
Yeah,
No, it does.
the person that's been working, I mean, who's listening to this, whoever's listening to this podcast now, and you might have a 50-year-old person listening to this now who's had this dream and has never been able to do it because
Resource
they
limit.
well, you could start. I think we'll see a lot of people starting side hustles doing
Hmm.
this just to give it a
Hmm.
go, because there's no risk to it. The risk is $199 a month. I know that's not small change, but it's also
All the
not.
value you get
It's not going out and employing somebody on 30 grand a year. You know,
exactly. Yeah.
it's different. So anyway, sorry I went on a bit there, but
You're
as you can
impressed.
tell,
You love it. You do love
I
it.
am impressed. Look, it's not faultless. It's there's a couple of things where it's stumbled on. It's not faultless, but again, with most of these faults, I've realised it comes down to my prompting and me most of the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely for those interested, check it out. Get on the wait list. The sooner you get on the wait list, the sooner you'll get a chance to play around with it. But we are going to have to go because we've got Professor Maltzman waiting for us for an interview, which you guys will hear in due course. Any last words, mate?
Nope. Nothing from me
Awesome.
other than that Manus is a game changer. You're right.
It is, yeah, it is a game changer. So for those who are listening live, newsletter out tomorrow. For those listening on the podcast, newsletter was out yesterday. I think I got that right, yeah?
Yes.
Cool. All right. See everyone next week. Bye-bye. Right, I guess we go.